Scares Anonymous contains intense and graphic scenes that may frighten certain individuals, such as children, persons with histories of mental illness, and homeschoolers. This podcast may feature topics such as blood, death, ghosts, and immature fart jokes. Proceed with extreme caution if you suffer from medical conditions such as heart problems, seizures, loss of bowel control, or getting offended by everything. And most importantly, don't touch the f***ing monsters.
Welcome to the Scares Anonymous podcast with me, Andy Moore. You may know me as Scary Guy, Zombie Dude, That Farmer, Can Man, Old Guy, The Farting Guy, or even just Dad. But if you ask me what my name is, I'll tell you it's Uncle Varner. I've been a scare actor since 2002. I've worked everything from home haunts in my parents' backyard to medium-sized haunts in Colorado and Nebraska to the one that started it all, Knott's Scary Farm. For the last few years, I have also been a manager, designer, and builder at Roca Scary Farm near Lincoln, Nebraska. Once the mask comes off, I'm a pretty average guy who doesn't fit the stereotype of somebody who enjoys splattering fake blood all over myself and giving people nightmares. I don't have any tattoos or piercings. I honestly don't like horror movies. I'm married and have kids. I go to church, and I'm even an Eagle Scout for crying out loud. But every year when October arrives, that's when I get to be a totally different person for a few nights each week, and let me tell you, there's no better stress reliever in the world. Over the last couple decades, I have met many interesting people and have heard and told so many great stories, all related to scaring. This podcast was created to relay those stories on to fellow scare actors, fans of haunted attractions, or anybody that just wants a good laugh at someone else's expense. On today's podcast, our guest is Paul Bilson, who is a good longtime friend of mine. We have been friends since high school, and he is a former Knott's Scary Farm monster. And Paul, go ahead and take it away.
Yo, what's up, man?
First off, tell me about your Knott's background or any other scaring background you had. Knott's was your first scaring gig, right?
Yeah, you're the one who got me into that. You were working there for like 2 years, and then you were like, you should do it, and I'm like, I don't know if my work will let me, but I asked one time, and they were like, yeah, whatever. And I went in, I got an on-call spot for Redbeard's Revenge. I always wanted to be a pirate.
That's right.
And I was supposed to start, but then some chick, like, I had the first on-call spot, and somehow she got in front of me and got the spot, but then got fired because there's something with her back, or I don't know, it was stupid. And then I was a pirate for 3 years. And then I started this thing, not started this thing called Scare Force. Which, so there's a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, dilemma with that, or problem with that. Basically, they sold it to us like, oh yeah, like if a maze is out a monster, you'll fill in, so there's no holes in any mazes. But when we got to orientation, they were like, these monsters are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, coming into all your mazes to like help regulate and be like, get your maze back on top again. And I remember sitting in the front of the auditorium and just like sinking in my chair going like, yeah, that's not what we are. Right. We were immediately hated.
Jeez. And
it was like the worst thing for the next like year and a half to 2 years. But every time I went into a maze, I would always say, hey, I don't think I'm better than you. They told that we were just like supposed to help out. So I did that for 2 years.
Well, the Scare Force, I actually totally ripped off that idea for Roca Scary Farm. Last year, we started our own Scare Force. I even called it Scare Force. But it wasn't the same thing. I didn't, like, tell people, like, oh, these are the best. It was basically like, we were like, oh, you want a position, you can get on our Scare Force and fill in wherever. Yeah. And it was usually people that were brand new, but I called it Scare Force but nobody even wanted to be on it. They're like, oh, I want to be in my own position, in my own permanent spot. But
yeah, you want to have there's like I would say there's like a debate where there's a little bit of pride of having your like, this is my thing, and I do this and this is right. And that's kind of, I think, what a lot, like, okay, so you remember the Asylum.
Yeah.
And that was like, they were the worst to Scare Force because they were so, like, the Asylum, like,
they thought they were better than everybody when I was at Haunt.
Yeah, and like, I know a lot of those people, and I don't think that they meant it to be like, I don't think they meant like they were better, but that maze was pretty badass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and definitely they kind of had the right to boast a little bit. But man, there were some times when like I would hear other Scare Force people go in and they'd try and fill in a spot, and the monsters would be like, "You can't come in my room," and I'm like, "That's lame." But I actually had a different experience because like I once came into a room and I would be like, "Hey, is it cool if I scare in here?" And they were like, "Yeah, whatever." And then at the end of the night, they were like, I usually don't like Scare Force coming in my room, but you kicked butt in here tonight. Like, that was pretty awesome. I was like, nice. So it was just, you had to have the right mindset. I didn't ever have the mindset that I was like better or anything.
Right.
That helped me out. Yeah. So after 2 years of Scare Force, oh, and by the way, like towards the end of Scare Force, that's kind of what it turned into. It really did just turn into. It was more accepted that was just the fill-in spots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, you're here to fill in maze spots.
Right.
It was also cool because it was face makeup.
Yeah.
That was the other big selling point. It was like, yeah, you don't have to wear a mask. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I have a funny story about that. If I'll tell you later. Yeah. So then I made Streets, and at Knott's, like Streets was like the big like deal. Everyone wanted to work at Streets. I worked in Carnival, the clown area.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for, I guess technically only 4 years, but I was hired for a fifth year. It's another story for later.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. That's on my list.
So I mean, in total, about 10 years of scaring experience.
Sweet.
Nothing before that though. I didn't start till I was like 22. So.
Yeah, and those first couple years when I worked there, because I worked 2003, 4, and 5, and I remember those first 2 years I was in the Carnival of Carnivorous Clowns, and I was like, Paul, you have to get over here and work with me, and you never did.
I know,
and I was like, it would be so much fun to be a clown with you, and it never got to happen. I was bummed.
I was bummed too, and it was all about work. I couldn't figure that I would be able to do both.
Mm-hmm.
My schedule wasn't really set, and I was like, I didn't think I could tell my work, hey, for this month of October, I'm going to take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights off.
Right.
And have them be, okay, fine. You know.
So we got your background on the scaring. You didn't scare before. Like, we had haunted houses at my parents' house. You never did that with us, did you?
No, I actually always liked going out trick-or-treating. I trick-or-treated until I was like 20.
Living the dream that we all wish we could.
I know, and what was funny too is that like I never really thought anything was wrong with that.
Well, that's because you're like 5'0" nothing, right? People thought you were like 9 years old.
No, man, I was like 5. I'm like 5'5", 5'4". I was probably at least 5'2" or so. I mean, I wasn't. I don't know. I mean, that's a good point. I think I was like 5'4" by the time I hit 18. But you're probably right though. I was a skeleton, man. Like I look fat now, but.
Well, I mean, my son is 17 and he's 5 foot tall, so he wants to. He went trick or treating last year, and we're like, go for it. And nobody's gonna question it.
Here's the rule, though: you have to wear a costume. If you don't wear a costume, that's
just like lazy.
And that was what me and you remember Cameron. We used to just go around. The funny part was we used to just go around with our BMX bikes.
Mm-hmm.
We'd ring the doorbell. What are you supposed to be? I'm like, we're Flatlanders, and they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, we'll show. And we did tricks for them on our bikes.
Oh, nice.
And so, like, that was our justification. So it was like trick for a treat, Like, we did tail whips and stuff like that. And they were like, all right, we'll give you a candy for that. Yeah, that's totally.
Cool. All right, now let's talk briefly about how we met. We met in high school, and it was in freshman science class.
Yeah.
We sat next to each other the first semester, and I think ended up in the second semester as well, but... Yeah, that was kind of the beginning of our friendship.
I always remember the story. Always makes me laugh because I remember I walked into freshman class and I was like, all right, I'll sit next to that dude because I know him. And then he's all, hey, my buddy wants to sit here. Why don't you go sit over next to Andy? Andy, he's cool. And I'm all right. And so I moved desks. I sat next to you, and then that was it.
Yeah, and I didn't know anybody. I was super shy in high school. Like I had. Yeah, like a couple friends, and of course they weren't in any of my classes. So I was just like, and still to this day, whenever I have to go to like a work thing or like like a work class or training or something like that, I walk in and I'm just like, I'm going to just sit over here by myself and then hope people come and sit next to me because I just don't like that. So I was really glad that you did, and then our friendship kind of
Yeah. Well, it turned out you were
budded.
pretty funny, so worked out.
Yeah, it was fun though.
You make fun of me all the time, and it's perfect.
Well, that's
I'm
kind
not
of sad, but
No, I have
if
my
you liked
shortcomings.
it. You talked about your background a little bit, but I'm surprised you didn't mention bowling at all. Isn't that
Oh.
kind of your life at this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, I bowl like three leagues. I thought you wanted just scary stuff bowling.
Yeah,
Or,
I am. I'm kind of making a joke, but you are a good bowler. You've bowled what, 200-300 games, something?
I've two 300s and I have a 299.
Wow.
And no 800 series yet. For anyone who knows what that is.
I don't know what that is. Yeah, how about you enlighten us?
Well, so in a series, it's the total of 3 games. So like the best series you can bowl is a 900, obviously 300s. 800 would be, I mean, if you can bowl, that's 200. That's bowling 266, 3 games.
Yeah.
Or better. So
Okay.
not quite there. 771 is my high series.
Nice.
Pretty good.
Fancy. Well, we'll get back into bowling later on too, because we were in a bowling class together in college, which was basically a screw around class where we got credit to screw around. So next thing we're going to do, we have a treat for you. We have a sponsor for this episode, and I guarantee you have not heard this audio trailer before. This is the world premiere audio trailer for this new movie that just sounds absolutely amazing. So here goes.
Can't wait.
The game has been played since before Jesus walked the earth.
Sorry, Joseph. You and Mary will have to spend the evening in the stables.
In modern day, it's used to make decisions that could affect humanity as we know it.
Mr. President, that means we're not launching the nukes.
How about best 2 out of 3?
This summer, the most unlikely of heroes will arise.
All you ever do is play with those silly rocks.
They're not rocks, they're minerals.
This country has hit rock bottom. This disaster can only be reversed with the help of a very skilled geologist.
Honey, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, but the world needs me.
I know. Now go get your rocks off.
One of Hollywood's elite delivers his best performance ever in a role he was born to play.
Dr. Stone, you should know paper always beats rock.
I don't play by those rules.
At long last, rock finally beats paper. Rock, Paper, Scissors, the movie, starring The Rock.
And tell Scissors I'm coming for him next.
That movie sounds amazing, and I will be there at the midnight showing for sure.
I'm getting a bootleg copy of that.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, The Rock's voice kind of sounded a little odd, though. So I don't know.
I'm sure it's just the way you got your EQ set on, your headphones or whatever.
That could be it.
Probably
Maybe he had a cold or something. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds.
That sounds.
Right.
I can't wait for that movie. That's gonna be good. Rock, paper, scissors, the movie.
Oh, dude, you kind of sound like him.
Oh yeah, I do, huh? Oh,
just a little bit.
all right. Well, let's shift gears again back to scaring. Let's talk about your time at Haunt. We talked about the brief background you had, and then let's talk about the actual scaring. Like, do you have any good stories that you experienced while you were there?
Yeah, I was trying to think about a lot of these. So many. I mean, I started in 2005, and I mean that was whatever that was 15 years ago, almost 14 years ago. Pirates was awesome. I remember I worked in the brig, is what we call it. The jails essentially. And I don't know, there wasn't really too many that come to mind, funny stories, or good. Well, okay, I got one good scare that I can think of. I used to pretend I was chained to. I didn't ever want to be in the cage because you couldn't chase anyone if you were in the cage.
Yeah,
you had to just reach out to them. It's a good concept, but I mean, it made it feel authentic. But it was you can't chase anyone that's you're not threatening enough. So we used to put monster cans in the cage and say, "Hey, there's always a monster in there. Don't worry."
Oh, jeez.
So one time, not related to that, but I would act like I was chained to the cage, and I was, which I thought was better because I wasn't really chained to the cage.
Mm-hmm.
This girl's coming around the corner. Oh, and they had this really cool. They had this hydraulic platform that would move up and down, and it would feel like the ship was rocking.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
It was a really cool effect. You'd come around the corner, and all of a sudden the floor would drop, and it was supposed to feel like you were in a rocking ship,
Right.
which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
This girl's coming around the corner, and she's like, "Okay, I can be okay. I'll be okay. I'll be okay." And I'm just eyeballing her the whole time and just giving her like the scary eye. And as soon as she sees me, I'm like, I don't know what I said to her, but I said something in my like deep monster voice, and she lost it. And I was just, "Remember my face. It's gonna haunt your dreams tonight." Which by the way, I ripped off the "Remember my face" thing from Mike Simpson.
I was actually thinking that when you said it.
Yeah, I ripped that off from him. Do you want to tell that story? Because that's actually
man.
your story.
How did that go? Oh, he's
Some-
like
Sing you, right?
No, it was when we were in Carnival of Carnivorous Clowns. I worked with my buddy Mike that very first year, and there was like a customer that was harassing him, or he hit Mike or something like that, and then Mike was wearing like a prosthetic mask on his face, of course, so it didn't look anything like him.
Yeah.
And so this guy was harassing Mike, and then Mike, they had some altercation, and then as the guy was walking away, Mike's like, "Remember my face, because I'm going to kick your ass." And it was like, we were just like, what? That's kind of ridiculous, because as soon as you get that mask off, like, he's not going to know what you look like. But
So I literally adopted that line. I probably said it a dozen times a year, every year I worked.
Nice.
I never meant it as my actual face. I just meant it as my scary face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember my monster face.
Right.
Because it's gonna haunt your nightmares. So back to the story. She just starts breaking down, and so I let her go on to the next room, and then I pop back out of a curtain because I used to like going backstage and kind of popping into different spots.
Mm-hmm.
So I was gonna go and scare her in another part of the maze, but she didn't make it to the next to pass the next curtain. The next curtain, I see her coming through, just hands in her face. She's crying, and she had to get exited out of it. She didn't even make it around like 1/5 of the maze.
Jeez.
I scared her out of it. I was like, that was probably the best scare I ever did. That I know I did the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Redbeards was cool. Let me think of another story.
Well, I got some. I'll kind of chime in here too, because I didn't talk much about my haunt stories on the last episode, so I got a couple that I had thought of when I was in Carnival of Carnivorous Clowns, or I'm going to call it C3 now because it's easier, and that's what we all called it back then. When I was
C3.
in C3, it was a 3D maze, so it was like painted fluorescent colors, and everybody walking through wore 3D glasses. And when it's in 3D, you get to really mess with people because their eyes are already screwed up. So the very first room in there, it was like the walls were black, but then they had little pieces that were painted different colors and stuff. And people really couldn't tell where they were walking. So they'd walk in and they'd be like, where do I go? So what I would do is I'd stand in the doorway that they're supposed to walk through, and then I would kind of put my hand over and point them to the right of it, and people would just walk right into the black wall, just face first into this black wall over and over all night long.
Oh, dude, that reminds me of something I used to do in Pirates. So the way the maze was set up, you would walk in the ship and you would make a left. You'd go around the corner, and then there would be a hallway, and that was where the cage area was, the Briggs. And then you would kind of keep going. But there was also a curtain right there that separated the – I don't know how it makes sense, but like – so basically if you walked into the ship, if you turned left, you would go around the ship and you would go into the cage area. But if you turned right, you would walk through a curtain and then just continue on the rest of the maze.
Mm-hmm.
So what we used to do is we would take that curtain and we would hold it open and we would point people back in the way they came and just literally make them do loops around
Nice.
the around the thing. I think the record we set was like we got someone to do it like 5 times.
Nice.
And finally, by about the 5th time, we were like, "No, you got to go that way." And they're like, "No, we just saw you." And they kept trying to go, "No, get back that way."
I feel like there was something in the circus we did something like that too, but
Sure, yeah. You just play with the curtains. It's good to like
it's fun.
you loop people around or have them cut out half the base.
Just messing with people is amazing. I love doing that. That's half the fun of scaring is like messing with people. Like scaring is awesome, but like
well, that's I had a buddy in Scareforce say that the 2 highest memorable emotions are fear and laughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so like my theory was if I can't scare you, I'm just gonna make you laugh.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I'd rather you be entertained than like because I mean you get the typical guest that walks through with like chest buffed out and kind of I'm not gonna get scared by anything. But yeah, you get those and you're just kind of like you're not gonna get scared. So I used to like walk up to them and go, I just saved a ton of money by switching to Geico. I would get so many people laughing.
I'll do the same thing, except I won't say that line. I'll walk up to them and I'll whisper in their ear, I pooped my pants.
Yeah, I farted. It was always a good one. So
and then I have the little pooter too, where it's like if you don't know what a pooter is, it's this little like squeezy thing that I hold in my hand and it sounds like a real fart, and I'll walk around with that for a long time each night and just walk up and down the lines and just fart on people. Like I'll lift my leg and put my butt right up against people and do it.
Yeah,
it's great. People are like, oh, that guy just shit his pants. I'm like, no, I didn't.
Yeah, that was
really funny.
I tried to use that too, but I was never as good with it. Plus, I used slider gloves.
Yeah.
Now I'm just getting a flood of stories from Redbeards. Anyone who worked Redbeards will remember Scary Rope, which is like looking back is the dumbest thing ever. It was just this rope that would hang down in our room, and we would just flap it in people's face. Scary Rope. Of course, there's like Scary Cup, and Scary Spoon, and Scary Fork, and everyone had their own little scary whatever thing, which just got a little outplayed. I used to paint things gold. I'd paint everything gold. I had gold dinosaurs
and nipples.
Oh yeah, that in our free time.
We've both had those a couple times.
I would paint like golden dinosaurs, golden. I had diamonds that I painted gold.
I don't know why that's funny, but it is.
It's
so
hilarious.
Stupid.
Yeah, it always made me laugh. It was like, look at these diamonds; they're gold. I had golden. I would just find rocks in the backyard and paint them gold. They were the golden nuggets. I had a golden toothbrush. I had a golden everything. But I had a chain link that I used to wear around my neck that I painted gold. And back then, well, and still now, I'm sure it's still a big thing. But anytime someone would walk through with like a baller chain, I would be like, "Yo, man, let's change trade. Let's trade chains." And I got one guy one time to actually trade with me. So he throws on my chain, I throw on his chain. And he puts his arm around me. He's all, "Yo, we pimping with the pirates up in here. We pimping with the pirates." We walked through the whole maze like that. And I was just like, "Yeah, we balling. Pimping with the pirates." It was so funny. It was so funny.
It's all right. That's what we have the censored beep noise for. No worries.
You can also just cut that part out. Another. I know this is stupid, but like, people would come around the corner and they get scared and they'd say "OS."
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Oh shit," and I would just go "Ocean." Because it sounded like...
Yeah, that's another thing I do, too. It reminds me of is people, when I scare them, they'll go, "Jesus!" And I'll go, "My name is pronounced Jesus." Usually gets a laugh. People will go, like, "What? Oh!" And then they'll get it and laugh.
I would get like, "Oh my God." And I'd go, "Where?
Mm-hmm.
Where?" Yeah, I don't know, man. All these stories are coming back to me now, yeah. But... I mean, I think I had more fun than I had like scary moments.
Yeah, I'm the same. I agree.
We had, I don't know. If anything, pirate thing related. One of the best things I ever did. I don't know why I didn't get most creative for this. This literally had to be the best. I photocopied or I scanned in copies of the map, and I took it in Photoshop, and I dirtied it up, and I made it like this thing, and I made a treasure map. It started at Redbeard's Revenge, and I had a friend who worked in the Lost Vegas maze.
Mm-hmm.
It was Vegas-themed maze, but it was called Lost Vegas.
Yeah.
and I had the thing end there, right? And if I saw a cool guest that seemed like they were kind of having fun and they were legit and they weren't kind of being lame, I would go, all right, here's my treasure map. Go get me treasure. And, I just give them treasure maps and they'd walk over and my buddy would tell me, yeah, so dude came in and he had your treasure map. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. I had like at least 2 times where later on in the night that dude would come back to me and give me my gold, give me my treasure back. I was like, dope, it freaking worked. But like,
awesome.
yeah, no one thought that was most creative, but well, whatever.
That's good.
You know how I had to win most creative though? That was the funniest thing was I did in my 3rd year win most creative in Redbeards. I did that by dressing like a Viking on a few nights. So I was a pirate Viking.
Nice.
And everyone just thought it was funny. And the funny part was the talent captain would get mad at me because it wasn't theme appropriate.
Right.
And that actually was funny because there was that what was that one maze made after that movie? Beowulf. That was what it was. So Beowulf was a maze right next to us. On the last night, we all pillaged and plundered Beowulf.
Nice.
The entire pirate maze, or most of the pirate maze, ran through there, and we kept sticking. We had stickers that said, "You've been pillaged and plundered by Redbeard's Revenge." So later in the night, Beowulf came through our maze and did the same thing. It was pretty funny.
That reminds me of when in C3 we had every night at some point the monsters at the very beginning of the maze would start a conga line.
Yeah.
So it would just get longer and longer as it went through. So we'd all line up next to each other, put our hands on our shoulders, and we just pound on the walls as we're going through the maze. It just boom, 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 boom. And then by the end of the maze, we had like 20, 30 monsters all lined up pounding on the walls. But then the maze was completely empty. So if you were a guest walking through there, it was probably super boring.
Yeah.
But usually we'd go out and then we'd finish the maze and the exit. We'd go around the arcade and then just go back and start over. But there was one night towards the end where we actually continued and we went through the maze right next to us, Malice in Wonderland. We went through their entire maze and the conga line, and I think we got super yelled at afterwards by our talent captain and the Malice talent captain, but it was really, really funny.
It's kind of funny things like that where I get it from from Knott's perspective. It's like, it's not what they want to present.
Right.
But I always think of it like, don't they say like when you go to a Broadway show, the last show and the last night is always the best one because they just goof around.
Right.
And those are like the memorable ones. And I really think if you sold it that way, you probably could sell out on a last night knowing, hey, this is, mess around night. The monsters is
right.
No rules. I mean, they're going to do stuff out of place. You do it just for the memory of it,
Yeah, of course.
But, they're never going to see it that way.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun in C3. That was, I actually I was in there for 2 years. In the second year, I tried to get the most creative award, and you probably don't know what I'm talking about. Listeners out there, they have this after haunt ceremony every year where they give out awards. Like there's most creative, and
you've got Rookie of the Year, Monster of the Year, Most Creative, it's either like Best Endurance or like Most Endurance, and then there's Best Slider / most or Best Physical Scare.
Okay.
It's like they didn't really allow you to slide in mazes, so if no sliding, they would switch it to like, what was your best physical scare?
Right.
I think that was it.
Okay. Yeah, well, I tried to go for that in my second year, the most creative, and I did not get it. It's probably because I only was friends with a couple people in there. I wasn't really like very outgoing, but I had all these different weird things, and my favorite thing, actually I had 2 favorite things. The first one, I had this inflatable fat suit that I think you actually showed me or bought it for me or something like that, and it was just this like suit that went around my entire body, and then it had a fan attached, so it was this giant fat suit, and I'd run around with it. And I actually tried to give myself the name Fat Ass in that maze. I tried to get that to be my haunt name, but that didn't work out. But my second and my very favorite prop that I've probably ever created, and I used it at Roca 2 years ago, and but it was the crotch horn.
Yeah.
So I would take a bicycle horn and I would stuff it in my crotch, and I'd like tie it to my belt so it was right down below. So I would walk up to people and I'd grab my balls, basically, and it was actually a horn, so I'd honk it, and it got the best reactions. People would be like, why is this guy grabbing himself? And then I'd honk it, and they'd just lose it. They thought it was the funniest thing ever, and I love doing that. I think that I should do it more, but I'm always worried that, and especially now at the farm, I'm worried that they're going to be like, that's a little inappropriate, because it's like kind of a family farm.
Yeah,
so
but
I'm worried about pushing the boundaries out there.
I'll make the point that as long as you do it to the right guest, because I mean, you have to know your crowd.
Right.
I think that's important.
Yeah, and I would never do it to like a kid, but if I go out there and there's like a group of young adults and they like look like they're having a great time, they're getting it.
They're gonna understand.
Yeah.
I have a similar like horn modification that I did when I was in Carnival. So I liked the bike horn thing. That was like a pretty easy scare, but everyone had a bike horn, so I kind of wanted to do something different. So what I did is I took the ball off, and I took the little piece that makes the noise off, and I shoved a trumpet mouthpiece in there, and I can literally play that thing like a trumpet. It sounds horrible because it's like a short pipe with a thing, but that was the best part. But I had total control over how I did it. You know, like I could do long ones, I could do short ones, I could do songs. I used to do like the Vader Death March or whatever, Star Wars theme.
Yeah.
I used to do techno songs that that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I won most creative in Carnival as well. Those are the only 2 awards I ever won.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, you had to. It's kind of like you're right. You sort of had to be well known.
Yeah.
I believe it might have been part of the horn was the reason for that. I wanted to win Slider of the Year my last year there. I had my friend Mike Beggs, who I ran with him my last year in Carnival, and he was a good slider. He'd won Slider of the Year tons of times, and he always tried to push me to like slide a little bit better. And so me and him would just one up each other. He'd go down for a hard slide, and I'd come up right behind him and just go. I'd try and one up him a little bit. He used to, most of the time he'd go like, it was a gentle slide, which was my hot name. And I was like, all right. But then every now and then I'd do like a good one, and he'd be like, all right, okay, all right, I see what you're doing there. Nice. I got it.
I had fun sliding too, and in mazes you weren't supposed to, but
yeah,
everybody did because it's fun. But I had a lot of fun sliding and slid after that too, outside of knots. But I screwed up my knees really bad from doing it, so I retired from sliding like 6 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Destroyed myself.
I don't know if I could do it anymore. I could probably try, but
yeah, that's a young man's game.
I don't know. Some would say not. I know a lot of 40-year-old dudes that still do it.
True.
It's all about keeping in shape,
Yeah, of course, and that's definitely not me. So
yeah.
Well, speaking of which, what of being injured, like, do you ever hurt yourself while you're sliding, or any other issues? Like, you get hit by a guest, that stuff?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I never really had like the bad guest experience. I don't. Maybe I was.
Except for one.
Well.
We'll talk about that.
Well, what I mean is I never really had the hitting guests.
Oh,
like
okay.
I mean, like in the 10 years I did it, I can remember there was one time in Scare Force where this dude had his arms crossed, and I was pretending to be like fake on the wall, and I jumped out at him, and his arms were crossed, and his elbow went way up, like big time way up, and he totally like knocked my chin, and I was all, dude. He's all, it was an accident, bro. It was an accident, bro. It was a reaction. And I'm, oh, yeah, right. Like I never, like, it'd be one thing if he kind of cringed a little bit, but no, he like legitimately. It was a forceful move for sure.
Yeah.
So my favorite story as far as like altercation in Redbeards is this one. Every mullet I saw, I made fun of, and as I'm sure you do.
Of course, you have to.
You have
to.
That's
like I think there's a law that it's a requirement.
It's in the haunt bylaws that if you see a mullet, you have to point it out. So there was this big dude. He honestly, I swear he probably was a wrestler. I'm not kidding. He looked like not exactly like Macho Man, but kind of. Yeah, he had the build, and he had the mullet, like Jerry curl mullet thing. And I don't know why I said this to him. I mean, I know why I said it to him, but I don't know why I didn't think this was going to be a bad idea. I used to quote Wesley Willis, "Go to the barber. Tell the barber you are sick of looking like an asshole."
If you don't know who Wesley Willis is, go look him up. Go look up "Rock the Mullet" or "Rock and Roll McDonald's" by Wesley Willis. You won't be disappointed.
So I say that to him. I say, "Go to the barber. Tell the barber you are sick of looking like an asshole." I used to just say jerk, though, because I didn't want to say that to guests.
Right.
But for some reason, a-hole came out, and he kind of chuckled. He put his arm around me, and he's all, normally if someone said that to me, I would just break their neck. And by the way, it was at that moment that I realized that he had strategically placed his hand on my jaw.
Oh, jeez.
Like, slightly on my jaw. Thankfully, it was my character's jaw, so it was a little bit lower. And he's all, but I know you were just joking, right? And I was like, yeah, I was just kidding. I was like terrified. But then when he let me go, I snapped back to reality. I was like, no, you can't say that to me. You just threatened my life.
Yeah.
I'm kicking you out of this maze. And he's all, do you think Knott's Berry Farm really wants you saying that to guests? And I was like, checkmate, you jerk. I didn't say that, but I was just like, all right, you got me.
Yeah.
I can't say anything. That was terrifying, though. I thought he was gonna beat my ass.
Yeah. Well, and people with mullets, they have powers too. So you got to pick who you're actually gonna mess with and have an escape route always.
Superpowers. Yeah, I never made that mistake again. Well, that was always fun to do, though. Is anytime a guest looked like someone, hey, look, it's Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
My favorite was when I saw Louis C.K. It was a guest who totally looked like Louis C.K. and I was like, hey, are you Louis C.K.? He's like, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, you know who he is. You're Louis C.K. He wasn't really as famous at the time, but I was like, it was pretty funny. You're a funny comedian. You're one of my favorites. He's like, all right.
Was it really him or you're just...
No, it totally was. I mean,
oh, okay.
I don't think it was. Man, if it was, that would have been cool. But
because we had a lot of celebrities came to haunt, though.
Oh, tons.
They'd always close down the maze. They'd let them go through and then they'd close the maze for 5 minutes to make sure they got through before any other guests went in.
That reminds me of another, probably this is my claim to fame. I blew Hugh Hefner.
What?
Okay. Let me clarify. So I used to have this little thing for film. It was a little puffer. It looked like one of those baby snot things.
Yeah.
You would squeeze it and it would puff out air. And I used to use it to scare people. I just hold it in front of their face and then squeeze it, and then a little puff of air would hit them in the face. To me, it was so much a lot of these mazes use those air compressors.
Uh-huh.
Those are cheap. Those are cheap scares to me. It's they get me every single time because it's this loud, terrifying. You don't know what the hell it is, so but it's cheap. It's cheap to me. It's not physical.
Yeah.
So I used to use this little puffer, so it would look like a knife, and I would go and slash people's faces. So one night, they're like, all right, Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Bunnies are coming through. And I'm like, okay, this will be cool. So I wait till I see Hugh, and I walk up to him, and I puff the thing right in his face. So I blew Hugh Hefner.
It's a good story.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And then all the Playboy Bunnies. I didn't blow any of them, though, so maybe a few of them, I guess.
Yeah, I can't remember everyone who came to C3. I feel like there's one instance where somebody came through, and I think it wasn't Justin Bieber, but something in my mind is saying it was him.
Justin Bieber didn't get big until after you left, I don't think.
Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of people that came through that I just yeah.
I saw Justin Bieber, although I don't know if I actually saw him because he was surrounded by so many people, but I saw the crowd that he was in.
Yeah.
I met Neil Patrick Harris backstage. That was pretty awesome.
Sweet.
Although the funny story on that was that day I was going into the Dia de los Muertos maze, so I had a candy skull. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Yeah. So I had that on my face, and I'm smiling for the photo, and then I realized, oh, I have teeth on my face, so it's gonna look stupid if I do that. So I really quickly closed my mouth, but I didn't close my mouth and smile. I closed my mouth just to make it look like my teeth.
Yeah.
I look like I'm frowning. I literally look like a child, and he's super tall too. I look like a child that's being forced to get a photo with Neil Patrick Harris after I just got my face painted.
Nice.
It looks so bad, but it's me. I met Bud Bundy backstage. That one was kind of cool. And then, do you remember the movie Road Trip?
Yeah.
You remember the star of Road Trip?
Tom Green?
Well, I mean the top build guy.
No, I
whoever that guy was, I can't remember his name. I met him walking through the park, and he had a little basketball, and I stole it from him, and I started bouncing it around, but it didn't have any air in it, and I was like, oh, this sucks, so I gave it back to him.
Yeah, well, we don't have anybody ever come to Nebraska because it's, boring.
Yeah.
So we don't have any celebrities that ever come. Our celebrity, I always wish that like Larry the Cable Guy would come through because that would be like, he lives here, like he lives in Lincoln, and
do shout out, man.
I'd be like Larry. I'd probably break out my phone and get a picture with him, but he'd probably get mobbed at a place like Roca.
Yeah,
but that'd be sweet if he came. I'd be excited to see him.
Yeah, I think that was it for famous people. People would always say, "Oh, so and so's in the park tonight." I never saw anybody. Mm-hmm. Johnny Depp, I think, was supposed to be in the park one night.
Yeah, you'd always hear rumors about somebody being in, and then I never saw anybody. Yeah. Even the time when I specifically remember they closed off the maze, it was like they walked through, and then I walked back up front, and I was like, "Why isn't anybody else coming through?" And they're like, "Oh, blah blah blah, or so and so is in there," and I'd be like, "Oh, I missed them. What the heck?"
Yeah,
but I never saw celebrities. I was bummed about it.
Yeah. I thought of, well, I don't know, not celebrities, but every time I saw a Gothic person, I always thought, is that Marilyn Manson? Like, it's pretty lame joke. But you know what that turned into after that joke got old was, I used to pretend they were all Dementors, or Death Eaters. If you're a Harry Potter fan, you know what that is. Mm-hmm. So I used to go Expelliarmus.
Nice.
Or Expecto Patronum. If you're a nerd like me, you'll understand that.
I've seen the Harry Potters once, never read the books. I'm not a huge fan, but I know what you're talking about, though.
They all look like dark wizards, and I just
I know what you're talking about. I'm just not a.
Yep.
I don't know all the the wizard spells.
So, well, I'll talk about Scare Force really quickly. Give a little background on that. In Scare Force, it was a different maze every night. So, 25 different, you would jump from maze to maze every night. You had face makeup, which was cool. Although not cool for me, my two artists I had they didn't quite, the first one was like really good at stage makeup, but like the generic makeup was, you remember seeing all those makeups I got. Like most of the time it was pretty generic, and not entirely scary. My first night, I was in Alien Annihilation. I think that was what it was called at the time. And she's like, "All right, so I got to make you look like an alien. All right, so green face, right?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I guess that sounds good." She gives me green face, and then I'm wearing this like Power Ranger costume, or like it was a pink Ninja Turtle. That's what it was. It was like a Ninja Turtle, but it was like pink, and I looked like a lobster. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing, but it was a 3D maze. So the costume was supposed to be 3D, and everything around was supposed to be 3D. And in those 3D mazes, typically everything that's not 3D is black. So my green face just looked like I was just wearing dark makeup, or actually nothing at all. So at least 5 times that night I got, "Hey man, where's your mask?" Because I looked like every other monster that had a mask, mm-hmm. from the neck down. But then all you saw was just a dark-faced looking like guy, So not blackface though, just saying.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, no, just green face is what it was. But it didn't look scary because I just looked like a normal dude.
Yeah.
Later on, she ended up finding this glow in the dark makeup, or it was blacklight reflective makeup, and that looked awesome. She would do my whole face. Sometimes I would look like Mike Myers, but the best part was that if I stood still, you couldn't tell that I was real because I just had this glowing face. I looked like a dummy for sure. Mm-hmm. And I used to just stand there and look dead and then jump out at people. It was good. Yeah, but that one was fun. Different mazes were good. Like the Labyrinth was kind of lame, but I had fun with Labyrinth. I liked the more energetic mazes. So like when I got to work in 2 of the clown mazes, and that's when I was like, so I worked in Killer Clown College.
Mm-hmm.
After like one night of working in Killer Clown College, I'm like, I have to be a clown. Like I have to.
It's the best, man. I loved being a clown.
Yeah, I was like, this is the perfect blend because you have a good balance of. There's a percentage of people that are automatically afraid of clowns, so you got that going for you.
Yep.
Then there's the people that are maybe not afraid of clowns, but maybe kind of off-put by them, and you could be psycho. Like I always tried to play like a Joker type clown, just completely insanity. Like I'll kill myself as long as I kill you at the same time. Just like total like no holding back. And then the other thing was that like if you couldn't scare them, you just made them laugh.
Yeah, of course.
So it was the best for everything. So I did that one, and then the following year there was Uncle Bobo's, and that one was fun.
Yeah, being a clown really is the best because those first 2 years I was a clown at Haunt in 2003 and 2004, and then after that I hadn't been a clown since then, and I got to be a clown last year. Or no, it was 2017. There was a night where I don't remember the reasoning, but I was just like, you know what, I don't want to be Uncle Varner tonight. So I had them do my makeup as a clown, and it was super fun. Like I got to be a clown and goof off, and I discovered that I have like this psycho crazy clown laugh that I would just like laugh in people's faces. And there's this one girl that I had like got on the ground, like she was on the ground crying, and I was just standing over here just just over and over, standing above her laughing, and it was amazing. I'm like, I need to be a freaking clown again. This is so much fun.
There's I forget who said it, but a clown is just a crossdresser. It's Patton Oswalt who said it. A clown is just a crossdresser who kept going. But also, there's something terrifying about being yelled at with someone with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. My favorite thing to do, I found this out later on. It was like it took me till like my 3rd year or so in Carnival to realize that you didn't have to be aggressive to have it work. Just staring at people with a smile on your face for a long enough time works. I remember just like staring at people for like a solid minute, and it's just their spine just immediately crumples, and they're just like, oh my gosh, stop looking at me.
That's so fun to do that.
I wouldn't say a single thing. I would just keep getting closer and closer, closer and closer. And then I'd walk away. It was like, that was it. Just, I got my scare. It was good.
Yeah. And people, it's fun to mess with people like that too, because you'll get the little teenage boys that come out and they want to like step up to you or like stare you down. And it's always the same thing. Like they'll just be staring. And I'll have staring contests and I always win, like every time. Doesn't matter. Yeah. But then there's the ones that are like, kind of good at it and they're not backing down. And usually I'll just like work up a burp and just burp in their face. And they're like, oh, back off.
Well, it's funny you say that because, it must be different kind of where you are, but I noticed over the years, the kids they got braver and braver, and like and also like kind of lamer as well because there's like this, I don't know what it was, but they weren't getting scared and then they weren't trying to have fun. Their main goal was to just
annoy you.
Yeah, like how can I annoy this clown? How can I mess up what they're doing? And it's like interrupting a performance. Yeah. And like, there's like an age range where I don't know, and it's.
I totally get what you're talking about, but and it's different because like at Haunt, I feel like, and I was much younger then, so maybe my perception of ages are different. But when I was at Haunt, I feel like the age range, like the majority of the people were, I would say probably like 18 to 30, young adults. Where at Roca, it's like the majority of people, it seems like, are junior high, junior high and high school. And we'll get these people that come out and they're just like, yeah, I just want to come out here and annoy you. And they'll they have fun and stuff, but then they'll be like, oh, I'm bored now and my mom isn't here to pick me up yet. So let's just go and annoy people. So they'll follow you around and they'll be like
babysitters.
Yeah. They'll follow you around and be like, Dad, hey, Dad, Dad, are you Dad? And I'm like, shut up. and they'll like literally be one step behind me, and I'll be walking around trying to do stuff, and they'll be following me, and I'm like, I never like say anything to them because I know it'll just egg them on more. But usually, when that happens, I'll like go into like we have the haunted manor that's kind of like the central area where I'm scaring most of the time. So I'll usually just like go into a back door on that they don't feel like they can follow me into. But I'm just like, dude, leave me alone. Like, let me do my job here and let me.
Okay, so I suppose we can get into it now. That's probably the best segue I'm going to get. So on the night that it all I want to tell. Later, I'll tell some more scare stories if I can think of any from Carnival, because I had a great time working there, sliding and whatnot. But I remember one of my friends said she was in the park on Instagram or something, and I said, I'm going to find you and I'm going to scare you. So as soon as I found her, she saw me and just booked it. So I started running after her, but she was way faster than me. I was super tired that night or something. But that was around the time when these two little doofus kids started following me around and doing that same sort of thing where they're just literally one step behind you. And I had to turn around like a couple times and just be like, go away. Yeah. And they wouldn't. I always had a good sense of who was behind me. And when I know someone's behind me, I'm like, all right, you're screwing up what I'm doing. But by the way, I may slide at any moment, and if I do that, I might hurt you. So, move away. I was already getting a little, I don't know why, I never used to let it bother me, but I was getting bothered by it. It wouldn't leave me alone. I think I flipped one of their hats off at one point. And then I went backstage to kind of cool off. And so I was like, all right, I'm cool. And so I went back out there, and I joked with someone. This is a funny thing I used to do is someone eating at a table is I would walk up to them and I would go, all right, chew. Okay, now swallow. Not like that. That's not what I meant. It would just make him laugh. But there was someone at the table, and he was like, hey, leave her alone. She's trying to eat. And I'm like, if I wanted your opinion, I'd ask you. And so, I'm getting kind of my energy, my anger scare up. I was trying to be scarier on my last year. Backstory on this was during my audition, I was doing my typical, redneck clown thing, mechanic goofing around. They're like, okay, but be scarier. And I'm like, I am scary. Like, wait till I get in my costume, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, I'll be scarier this year. So I see my friend with a camera in his face and the light, somebody filming him. And I'm like, all right, well, better go help him out. And I walk over and I was like, turn your camera off. And I did it in my clown voice, and it's annoying. Stop that, whatever. I start walking away, and I'm thinking, this is just a weird night. It was like Friday night, and I was just like, everyone's just these kids are just weird tonight. Like, I don't know, it never felt this weird before.
Yeah, there's different people had there's those nights where people are just in a mood. It's weird. It's like a legit thing. And
I think that guests feed off of each other, and I think that if it seeps into the monster, then because I've had nights where people will come up to me, oh, the guests are terrible tonight, and I'm like, oh, actually I've been having a great night, it's funny, but so I start walking away. The story's all broken up. This is how I talk, and this guy starts following me, and he pops in and he tries to take a selfie with me, which I can't stand that. We weren't allowed to take photos at Knott's on our last few years. They forbid it, and we would get in trouble if we took photos. Jeez. And it was I never cared. I never liked it. I never disliked it. The only thing I didn't like about it was you take one photo and then you end up standing there for 15 minutes taking photos with everyone, right? Which is whatever. If you need a quick break, who cares? But it's it can get excessive. Yeah. So they forbid it, right? And I'm like, well, I can't take photos because I'll get in trouble. So I think that's what started this whole well, I'm gonna have to jump in and get a selfie because every monster's telling me no, we can't take photos. So which not blaming them or anything, but Knott's kind of created that problem. I mean, right. By not allowing us to take photos. Okay? Yeah. So he jumps in, I jump away. He tries to jump in again, and I turn around and I push his phone out of the way, and I end up pushing it out of his hand. I say push. I may have actually knocked it out of his hand, but it really all it was like, get your phone out of the, go, stop.
Yeah.
Phone falls to the floor, and I'm like, I'm going backstage. I can't handle this right now. That's what they say to do. If you're just not feeling it, just take a minute, take a deep breath, get some water, walk around, cool off. So I walk backstage, but I'm like, I better go find out if the kid's phone's okay, because if he's gonna write an incident report, this was literally hanging myself. This is like putting the noose around my neck. I probably could have walked away and been fine. But as I walk back, I'm like, hey man, is your phone okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to take a photo. I'm like, yeah, well, ask next time. He's like, I do, but they all say no. And I'm like, hey man, no means no.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to tell you, but no means no. Like, learn that now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so then as I start walking away again, I realized that his friend who was filming my other friend started filming me now, and filmed pretty much the whole thing. And it's like, I got you on tape. And I'm like, why did you do that? And I was like, because it's effing annoying. You jump in my face. I'm trying to scare you guys. Like, it's not part of the job. And I just like, ask next time, like, be respectful, like, learn that now, whatever. So I walk away and I'm thinking, yeah, this is probably not going to go well for me. So yeah, by the end of the night, I get, hey, HR wants to see you. I go up to HR and they're like, so what happened? And I basically told them the story, and they're like, all right, well, we're going to have to do like an investigation. We're going to check and we'll see. Go home for a night. You're suspended until further notice. I'm like, great. So the lame thing about the process after that was I spent the next like 2 days not working, and everyone like, oh, where's Paul? Yeah, I don't know. And I kept calling them, hey, where are you guys at on that? And they're like, oh yeah, we're still investigating. I'm like, well, I mean, either you know or you don't know, right? I think when it finally came down, it took them a week to figure everything out. Finally, they were like, I think they just were like, well, we don't know, but yeah, you're fired. C-filed is the term. I probably could have come back the next year, but I don't know. Maybe I was done.
So pretty much the reason that happened is because you said the F word. Is that right? Or was there more to it? Like, was it the whole like hitting out of his hand?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. They never gave me a good reason, and I even argued with him. I even argued with the guy who kind of let me go. I was like, you could clearly tell that I was being harassed by these guys, right?
Yeah.
I was like, what if a ride operator was being harassed? Like you reach a point where you break, right?
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna be completely fine all the way up to the end.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you have to look at it from my perspective. Oh, actually, what I said is the reason I'm getting let go is because there's video evidence. Because if there wasn't video evidence, then I don't think there would have been a case. And he's like, yeah, well, I would have had to let a ride operator go for the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but only if there was video evidence, you know, like, and that's the thing. And that's the thing that's rough nowadays. Everyone's recording everything, so you really have to be careful. But the whole thing was definitely really unfair because my case is that I could basically get them for harassment and kick them out of the park for that reason.
Right.
And I took it a step beyond that and cursed. I don't know if it was for the curse word or if it was because they got it on tape and I yelled at a guest, or if it was whatever it was. But because that's the thing. It was after a week. They pretty much just they just kind of went like, okay, there you go. And I should probably clarify. I don't have any hard feelings towards Knots at all. I still go as a guest. I'm not I'm upset. I was upset at the time about the decision, but I get it from their perspective. Like if they have the reasoning behind it. I thought my years of working there, I'd never had any problems before that. And then just one time I slip up a little bit, and there you go.
That seems kind of messed up for one slip up.
Of course, earlier in this podcast, I admitted to calling someone an a-hole. So.
That's true. Maybe that person complained and it was in your file, and they just never let you see it.
Sure. I should also say I do have one other time I went to see Craig, and Craig was like he's the haunt father of knots. It was one night. I'd been sliding for like a couple weeks, my first year sliding, and I saw this little old lady on a scooter, and that thing was zipping around, and she was terrified. So I walk up to her, and I crouch down behind the chair, and I grab the arms, and I go, "Yeah, yeah," and she takes off. Dude, I'm talking, we were going like 15 miles an hour. It was hilarious. And the thing was, everyone around is just dying laughing because I'm not leaving her, and I'm just like, yeah, 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 mule. And her grandson was egging me on. I was like, is this cool? And he's like, yeah, keep going. It's funny. Well, the next day I come in, and they're like, all right, Craig wants to see you. I'm like, oh, boy, I think I know what that is. And I'm like, what happened? And like, well, first of all, what did you do? And I'm all, well, yeah, I did that. But, like, she didn't tell me to stop.
Right.
So, like, I felt like whatever. Her son was saying it was okay. He's like, all right, well, she says something broke on the chair. She heard something break while you were doing that. I was like, I didn't feel anything break. I mean, I was holding on pretty good. I think it was okay. But I was thinking maybe it was my knee pads, because when they slide, they make a like a snapping noise kind of.
Right. Yeah.
So I think she maybe heard that and thought something broke. And he's like, well, fortunately, nothing was wrong with the scooter, so you're fine. If anything would have been wrong, well, we'd have a different story. So and he's all, but don't do that again. And I'm like, okay, I won't do that again without permission.
Yeah.
And I never did it again without permission. I did do it again with permission, though. I used to go like, hey, man, can I get a ride? And they'd be like, yeah, all right. And I'm like, all right, it's cool, right? And like, yeah, and then they'd pull me around. So only like 2 other times. Well, I'll just wrap up the Scare Force thing. Being able to work in all the different mazes really got me into the idea of kind of figuring out who I wanted to be, and that's where I decided clowns was for sure it. Had to work there. So I auditioned. I passed the audition. That was like super nerve-wracking. My second year out there, me and a buddy created these characters called Team Mullet. And so in Carnival, you always had to have a red hair or no hair. That was the rule. There might have been like one exception, but pretty much everyone had to have red hair. So I went out and I bought 3 mullet wigs, and I spray painted them red, and we used to just walk around, and we were hicks the whole night. Oh, man, I ain't had this much fun since I took my sister to the prom. Things like, cheap hillbilly jokes like that.
Of course.
So me and my buddy were like, dude, they always encouraged you to create your own character, so we wanted to do mechanics. So we were the Mechanic Brothers, and backstory. That was the thing. It was cool to create a backstory. Our backstory was like we were the mechanics who were always like fooling around. We're secretly trying to sabotage all the rides so that people would die, and like things like that. And we're also bumbling mechanics, so that was that. And we used to just walk around like, this is a hard hat zone only. Everyone needs to wear a hard hat. Eventually, the characters evolved into drunken clowns, drunken mechanics.
Yeah.
We used to do just the best drunk. I had people like literally. I remember one night I was like sprawled out on the floor in the corner, like dragging my body around, trying to scare people like for a solid 15 minutes. I had my talent captain go, dude, is Paul really drunk? He looks wasted right now. They like legit thought I was drunk. It was the best. My favorite was one night I used to like walk up to trash cans and put my hand on them like I needed to steady myself, and then I knock them over and I would fall on the floor. I also used to fill my mouth with water and walk up to people and barf out of my mask.
Nice.
I used to do kind of gross things like that. My friend Joey, though, takes the cake. He used to walk around with like a trash bag full of doll parts and fake blood and like fake body parts, and he would just dig out of it. He would get himself literally bloody all night, and he was terrifying as a clown. But I used to just do cheap jokes. My famous thing was for the last 2 years I worked, at the end of the night, at the very last minute of the night, I used to wear coveralls and a shirt and a tool belt, and I had my gloves. And at the end of the night, I would go, "This is happening! Make way for the bathroom!" And I would throw my gloves off, I'd rip my tool belt off, and I'd unzip my coveralls, and I had shorts on underneath there, and I would find a planter, and I would pull my coveralls down around my ankles, and I would go, "Ah!" And I would pretend to poop into every planter I would see, and I would get so many people filming it. Every one of the clowns that had never seen it would all just be busting up, and I'd somebody hold my hand. I would get guests. Somebody hold my hand. Ah! The best was they used to let us go up to the main gate at the end of the night, and then they would let you take photos with people. So at the very end of the night, I did this, and I go into a planter, and I go and I poop in there, and as we're walking back, my talent captain goes to me and he says, "All right, can't remember his name now, but like the main owner of the place, or like maybe the vice president. It wasn't Rafi, it was the one below Rafi. He was like, he loved that bit. He thought that was the funniest thing ever. But don't ever do that into the planters again because they spent a lot of money on all the plants in the planters." And on my Facebook, you can pull it up if you want. I think it's on my Facebook. You can find it. There's the photo of that exact night of me pooping in the planters.
Nice. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah. So yeah, being a clown was great. Unfortunately, it didn't end all that well, and it's fun going back and like seeing the new generation, I guess. It's also kind of nice going back, and I now like do like mini policing. If I see someone with their cell phone on, I just yell, "Turn off your cell phone!" And usually they don't know who it is, so they think it's like security, and so they turn their cell phone off. It's pretty good. So
that's good.
All right.
So we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic here. We were going to ask for some questions from people, and I only have one question this time. This is from Lil_Fitz05 Max on Instagram. He asked, "What is the worst costume malfunction we've had?" And I can't think of any off the top of my head. Can you think of anything you've had?
Costume malfunction.
I mean, actually, I can kind of think of one. This happened a couple years ago, and I was reminded from my Facebook because I posted something on Facebook afterwards. I walked around half the night with my fly completely down at Roca, so I'm sure a lot of people probably were horrified at seeing that. Luckily, I wear like long underwear underneath my jeans, but
sure,
it probably was a surprise.
Not really a malfunction, but somewhat scary moment, I think. They had these games booths set up in Carnival, and they had wooden planks on the top of them, and they were relatively smooth, and our pants we were pretty slick, and so I used to do butt sliding on them, and I'd run, get a lot of speed, and I'd butt slide down the whole thing. Well, one time I did it, there was like a loose piece, and I slid, and I heard it snap, and I like literally took up a big splinter that was like, I don't know, it was probably like a couple inches long, 5 or 6, and it had stabbed through my pants, and it had I can't remember if it broke my actual pants or if it just broke my jeans underneath, but I didn't get cut or anything, but like it stabbed through, and I was like, not doing that anymore, or at least not on that bench anymore. Maybe this counts as a malfunction. So for sliding, my toe caps, you burn through your toe caps pretty fast. So I would always just kind of patch them with washers, glue washers on washers on washers, and patch them up and do whatever I could just to make them last as long as I could. But eventually they break open, and then the ring, it kind of creates like a kind of a tooth almost. Well, I went in for a big slide, and the toe caps, I slide toe in, and my feet came together at the toes, and the like fray like connected with one another, and so I went to jump up, but it was like my feet were tied together, and so I couldn't get up, and thankfully I wasn't sliding towards anyone, which, by the way, for sliding, don't slide at people, you slide across people. Like that's right. The dumb, like I was luckily sliding across someone, and I was able to just kind of slowly come to a stop and then like wiggle my feet around and then get up, walk away. That happened a couple times.
Well, I thought of one more thing, and it's kind of, I guess it might kind of count as a wardrobe malfunction. I have, at least my old costume, I would wear suspenders, and I have a shaker can, and I still use a shaker can. You can make fun of me, I don't care. But that's part of my costume is I have it.
If you're the only one using a shaker can, then it's fine.
There's a few people. But anyway, I tie my shaker can to my suspenders, and I throw it at people so it bounces back. And one night, I guess my knot wasn't good enough or something like that, because I threw it and it hit the guy right in the chest. It broke right off of my suspenders. Luckily the guy was fine. I was like, oh my God, I broke character. I'm like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, it's fine. He was laughing.
I've probably had something similar to that where, I don't know, something fell off me and hit someone. Yeah, I don't know. Or I dropped my horn, hit someone.
So this is the end of part 1. If you enjoyed this so far, definitely check out part 2 because we have another 80-ish minutes worth of stories. We also prank call some horror movie icons, talk about our obsession with mullets, reminisce about my 21st birthday party, and also...
I think if you slapped me today, I'd probably punch you in the balls.
It smelled like his butthole and his mouth switched places.
The camera used to basically be facing the table, and I used to stick my hand in my pants.
Yeah, I need you to go and hold my wiener.
So all we wanted was a Code Red Mountain Dew, and we'll leave.
You got a shake weight for Christmas a few years back.
Oh, yeah. That is a pretty tasty drink until you smell that mixed with vomit.
I just want to lay next to you for a while.
I screamed like a girl. Ah!
I did the 240s one time and immediately vomited afterwards.
And he full-on, like, grand slam swings it at my head.
We ate a rattlesnake once when I was there.
No, I ate the bear, though. Finally, at one point, he took his machete and hacked that thing to death.
Multiple people had called the cops because there was some guy running down the street with pantyhose pulled over his head holding a purse.
Well,
Losers.
I don't blame that on you or me. I blame that on Diaper Lady.
Hey, Steve, I heard you got fired. And then he goes on this, like, killing spree.
Anytime you're feeling bad, you just got to think Bill Gates on rollerblades.